नॉर्मली आदतन जब हुजूर अलैहिस्सलाम से कोई नाम पूछा जाता कि आप फरमाएं कि मेरे घर में बेटा है तो आप उसका नाम रखें, अक्सर majority of the time the Prophet would choose Abdullah or Abdul Rahman. Majority. He loved these names, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And his favorite title of his own, of course he has many titles, one of the great ones is Habibullah. The Sahaba were talking and they were saying Ibrahim is Khalil, Musa is Kalim, Isa is Ruhullah wa Kalimat Minhu. All these titles. And the Prophet ﷺ came out and he said, Allah Ta'ala made me Habibullah. And I mentioned before, Habib is that word that has both the meaning of the fa'il and the maf'ul, both the active and passive participle, meaning it's both the lover and the beloved. Habib is muhib and mahbub. So no one can have love of Allah more than him, alayhi salatu wasalam, and nobody is more beloved to Allah than him, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Habib is not a small name, but the name that he loved the most was Abd. Abd, to be a slave. Because ultimately, we were created. We had a brother today, may Allah Ta'ala guide him to Iman, who is interested, for all intents and purposes, he's a Muslim. He may not know that, but he's a Muslim because he believes in his heart. And he had some questions, and we had a small chat. May Allah Ta'ala guide him to Islam and keep us all firm upon Islam. But one of the things that he said for why he is interested in Islam and he feels very disillusioned with Catholicism, which is his current religion, he's a Catholic, is he said that it's something that a lot of people are talking about these days, and we've talked about it here, where he feels like there's substance with Islam. Substance. And what he means by substance is that there's an ubudiyah. Like there is a sense of ubudiyah, where worship is important. Now worship not just in namaz, like alhamdulillah, we just prayed Isha with Jama'at. What a great honor. Yeah? Maybe one of the best things that we will do this evening, right? But the fact that you submit to Allah, and I was teaching in the Arabic class with the kids earlier about Muslim, the word Islam, because they were doing the word Muslim, Muslimuna, they were learning the plural. And the idea is that Muslim is not someone that submits to peace, it's someone that submits to Allah and through that submission achieves peace. And I gave the example of, imagine if two people are having a fight, an argument, and you're constantly watching your back that they're going to attack. Or imagine, I gave them an example at school, two people are having, beef, as they call it, right? So they're beefing, and so they know that I'm going to walk in, he's going to look at me funny, his friends are going to look at me funny, and we're going to be in this. But the day that they sort of get over it and they shake hands, there's a peace, because you know that I don't have to deal with the drama. So through submission, there's peace that you achieve. Because you're not, it's likewise with Allah. There's a brother, he's a convert to Islam, and he does dawah and stuff like that. And so when he was talking about why he accepted Islam, and so some guys argue with him and he says, oh, it's because you were in a difficult time in your life, and you felt stressed out, and you wanted to break away, and that's why you found this new religion to give you purpose, right? Now that's true for a lot of people. He said, no, I was in the best part of my life. I think he was married, but he had a partner, he had children, he was partner in a business with his dad. Because actually I was doing really well in life. He goes, but I had no direction. And Islam gave me direction. And the brother said the same thing today. He said that I need direction, in the sense that I've got lots of issues, but I don't have answers, right? And he said, I'm feeling really disillusioned with politics, he said in the West. These were his words. That I've become disillusioned with politics. Meaning, it's when you realize that the people that you think are good guys are not the good guys, basically. And you realize that there's something really deep and dark about the people that are running your world. And that is a great shock, and it's a dystopia, yes. And we don't need to talk about that anymore. And we've been talking about that a lot. You know, perhaps the last month or so has been calmer, but a lot of it's very dystopia. A lot of people feel that they are living in a dystopia. And so they're looking for solutions. They're looking for alternatives. They're looking for a way out. And Allah Ta'ala promises us in the Quran, وَمَن يَتَّقِ اللَّهِ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. Anyone that is God-fearing, taqwa, Allah Ta'ala will find them a way out. Always. So I said to him that I understand that you're feeling disillusioned. Because he feels, his words I'm not saying, that the only people that are holding on to sanity, he said, are Muslims. That they're sane. In an insane world, that they are sane. That if you were to look at them in contemporary issues, let's say of politics, that they are, whether they are on the, forgive my language here, yeah? This is for the lack of better technical language. Whether they are on the right as Muslims, or whether they are on the left. It doesn't matter. If you have a Muslim, they could be sort of right or left in their thinking, right? But they will all stand against oppression and injustice. There's no politicizing of that. Whereas if you look at other places, they politicized it. If you're on the right, for example, then you are pro a level of oppression in the Middle East, for example. And if you're on the left, then you're against it. So you could demarcate where you stand on moral issues, deep moral issues, because of your political alliances. In America I'm talking, not in England. In that same way, right? That you can use, for example, that you can do something so ugly and negative, right? And then when 7% of your population, 7%, that's not small, is it? If I was to ask you how many people here are self-employed, I bet you that if there is, I don't know, 30 of you, 20 of you here, maybe only 3 or 4 people will be self-employed. Most people have a job. And when you have a job, most of those people pay what? Taxes. Maybe you could say the business owners, you know, they, through their expenses, they reduce the amount of tax that they pay. But the employees don't, right? That's before they even touch that money. So of that 7%, how much of them are business owners that may be, you know, using the available loopholes to reduce their taxes? Most of them are not doing that. Most of them are your GPs, your school teachers, your lawyers. True, isn't it? In fact, in terms of the South Asian community, in terms of business owners, there's probably more Indian Hindus than it is Muslims. Probably. Allahu Alam. I ain't got the study on it, but I can imagine. They were more skilled workers. The ones that came from Pakistan, the diaspora, were more unskilled workers, right? So they weren't. Now, of that 7%, of that, let's say 5%, are employed and paying taxes. They are citizens, and of that 7%, a huge percentage are born, raised right here, yes? Most of them are born and raised. British citizens, tax-paying, law-abiding, care for their fellow man, care for their environment, care for their fellow citizens, right? That's the majority of Muslims. We're taught that in our religion. The fact that they, in some really bizarre way, were able to mobilize with many thousands of non-Muslims, by the way, that they were able to mobilize and create some level of pressure on Labour MPs, let's say, to call for certain action to be taken. I'm scared of the words to use. Like, you can't use you can't use the word, you can't talk about you can't talk about a ceasefire. I'm talking in the third person, yeah? You can't talk about a ceasefire without that being, Islamism was where you were firing. Now Islamism is when you're calling for a ceasefire. You can't win. You can't win. What do you do? What do you do in that situation? That's not dystopian to you. That's dystopian, right? Now, it doesn't matter about if it's fire or not fire, if it's about killing or not killing, if it's about murdering or not murdering. That's irrelevant. It just depends on who's doing it. That's all that really matters. And that's why you realize that there are no nation states, there are no countries, and there are no governments. There are just very powerful people that have their interests, and the rest of us just have to play tango. That's all it is, right? So now, the fact that that happened, and we had policy change in Parliament. How dare you use your democratic right to lobby your MPs? How dare you? You peasants. You're the peasant class. You peasants dared to lobby, to protest. How dare you? Don't you know? Don't you know that we are a libertarian people that fought against nepotism, despotism, fighting for king and country, that old-fashioned backward stupidity? We fought against it in France. We had revolutions that we then imported over to England. We fought all of those wars to fight against governments that force you to not have a voice and a choice. We fought for that, only to do what? To tell you that you also don't have that voice and that choice. That's exactly what it is. I'm telling you, I'm just doing maybe a more expansive way of saying what the brother was saying. He's not even a Muslim. Because I feel so disillusioned with that you live in a time where the fact that the Speaker of the House has to come out and say that I'm changing policy. I'm changing policy. Why? Because I'm not talking about death threats and things like that. Those things are mamnu' in the Sharia, haram. I'm not talking about that. But if you want to go on death threats, people get death threats all the time. Not justified. But that doesn't suddenly mean that law changes over it. People get it all the time. It happens. What's the real problem? The real problem is you Muslims have always traditionally voted, let's say, Labour. And for the first time you're saying, no, we're going to vote independent. And that's a shock to the system. How dare you? How dare you do that? So so his point was that it doesn't matter. And so obviously the real problem is that, these guys all, if they mobilize and they're 7%, what if in 10, 15, 20 years they make up 12%, 13%? I understand their concerns. I do. Like if you're a right-wing tribalist, I can understand your concerns. It's fine. But that's if you say that we are right-wing tribalists, then I understand your concern and I even agree with you that may happen where if you get 10%, 12%, 15% of the population that can mobilize and put pressure on a vote, that they may be able to help their own causes. I can see your point. But if you're a liberal democracy that celebrates diversity and multiculturalism, then we shouldn't have this conversation, should we? So you got to pick one. You can't have your cake and eat it, as they say. You can't say that we are diverse, we celebrate multiculturalism, we celebrate democracy, and the people have the vote, and the people can lobby their MPs. That's what the whole point of the MP is. The whole point of the MP is that we can lobby the MP so that he represents us in Parliament and our views. I thought that that's what democracy was. So the fact that you can have somebody who's not a Muslim and says, I'm disillusioned by that. I'm not living in a moral world. I'm not living in a moral time. I'm not. And the only people that I seem to see as a religion, him saying this, as a religion that are trying to hold on to a moral consistency. A moral consistency where, because it's true if you think about it, I'm not talking about Muslim governments, Saudi Arabia, UAE, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the people of Islam, Muslims. have absolutely no allegiances to any governments except to the truth. It's true, isn't it? Saudi does something wrong, we don't criticize it? Of course we do. Iran does something wrong, we don't criticize it? Of course we do. Pakistan, I mean, we've got a million opinions of Pakistan. Halaki, our grandparents came from Pakistan. Yet, don't we criticize it? Yes, we do. Of course we do. His words, that I haven't found a religion that holds on. He also, as a Catholic, felt very disillusioned because of the Pope, allowing same-sex marriages and stuff like that. He found that to be very difficult, because his point was, so if in 10 years something else happens, are we going to change the Bible again? What's left of the Bible? So I don't know, the book that I'm holding, what worth is the book when the man who's infallible on earth, for them, for the Catholics, the Pope, he's infallible, you know that, right? According to church teachings, the Pope, the Catholic Pope, is infallible. That's not like the Protestants or the Anglicans. The head of the state, the Queen or the King, or even the Archbishop, they're not infallible. Whereas the Pope is infallible. That the man who's infallible, who can make no mistake, is changing the Bible constantly. So he said, well, it can't be right. In order for it to be right. And also, a people that actually stand up, are accounted for, have a backbone, are consistent, morally consistent, that you can't see thousands of people being killed and just stand by and let that absolutely mean nothing to you. So I wonder, I look at the silver lining and I say, you can, وَمَكَرُوا وَمَكَرُ اللَّهُ وَاللَّهُ خَيْرُ الْمَاكِرِينَ. You can plan and plot, Allah's the best of planners. And the more that you do that, because people out there who are not Muslim, that does not mean that they are not moral. They are moral. The majority of the people that you have around you are good, moral, upright people. They have just been scared for the last 60 years about what they consider to be an ethnocentric religion. And now that they're seeing that Islam is not ethnocentric, we did a disservice as well, let's be honest about it. I don't blame us fully. There are some colonial shadows overcasting us, and that's why our mosques largely became community centers, let's be honest about it, right? I mean, you don't have to go further than your own community. Now, we'll divide based upon Kashmiris, Pathans, Punjabis. You forget that even amongst Punjabis, whether you're which Baradari, we do that. And that's not good, because Islam has nothing to do with that. Yeah. Whereas when they start to see, ki yaar, Islam mein to koi rang bhi nahi. Koi rang nahi, koi mulk nahi, koi qaum nahi, it's a deen. And everybody's welcome. They will come in there, the floodgates will be open. I'm telling you, as long as Muslims stay moral and upright. That's what they say. Now, I gave you this whole little, I went a little bit that way, because I was talking about the word abd. The Prophet ﷺ loved the word abd. Why? Look what that brother said to me today. What does he ultimately love then about Islam? So, ubudiyah. The fact that you submit to God. That's it. Look, think about that. You would think that if you were to change religion to suit your social culture, that would entice people to Islam. But they don't respect it. They don't respect it. They don't respect you for that. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like a man that has no principles. How do you respect that person? How do you respect that person? For example, why is it you can't respect a munafiq? Munafiq ni izzat kiya nahi honi? Kyun nahi hoti? Why? Forgive my party, I do that sometimes. It happens naturally. Yeah, I'll try to stick to Urdu when I do go into my little moments. But why do you not respect a hypocrite? Because you know he says one thing and he does something else. At home it's different, in public it's different. The person is principleless. They have no principle. What you respect, even if you disagree, is someone that has principle. Like, I don't agree with you, but I respect the fact that you have principles and you stick to them. I think that obviously is a big worry for some people. But I think for a lot of people, they respect that a lot. A lot of people. A lot of people that are downtrodden especially. Why? Because they look for strength. They don't find it in other religions. They look to Islam and they see strength. They see strength in it. They see a level of iman, faith, yaqeen, tawakkul, and they love it. The only thing that stops them is hawa. Do I have to give up drinking? No. Do I have to, have a wholesome life and family and not messing around and sleeping around? Yes. Like that. Those are the things that stop them. Those are the things. Otherwise, if the hawa was removed, they'd come in their droves. Absolutely they would. Because there's deen. And look what the name for deen is. It's called ad-deenul mateen. What does mateen mean? Matan. We use matan for textbooks. Matan means rock. Ad-deenul mateen is like a rock. The religion is like a rock. The water falling upon it, it's just going around it, around it, around it. Eventually, if the stone is not made from maybe iron or something like that, maybe you'll get some drops that will break and crack into it. But generally speaking, a rock, unbreakable. Ad-deenul mateen. So this is why people get frustrated and they say, no, we have to think about this. Yes, there is fiqh that changes. Of course it does. Time and place. Fiqh does change. Our culture is different here in the UK. Like in Pakistan. Like this is why even getting fatwas from abroad is not always the best idea. You need your old Darul Iftaz. Because there's a waqi'. There's a fiqhul waqi'. You have to understand. Pakistan na mahol aur si, itna mahol ho raha hai. So you have to be careful of that. And so there are taghayyurat in fiqh. Things that can change. And they have changed, haven't they? I'll give you an example. They had huge debates in the early part of Islam about combining the Quran into one book. But Sayyidina Abu Bakr did it, didn't he? Sayyidina Abu Bakr did it. Why? Because the Hufaz were being killed in the battle of Tabuk. The Yamama. Many of the Hufaz died, were martyred. And so Hazrat Umar and other Sahaba convinced Hazrat Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anh, that we need to put the book into one mushaf so it's preserved. Putting the Zair Zabar Pesh, Fatah Dama Kasra wasn't there. The Nuqte weren't there. Nuqte. You wouldn't know the difference between a Ba, a Ta, a Tha. You wouldn't know the difference. Nuqte are there. The translation of the Quran, Allahu Akbar. Huge debates. They say, I haven't got tahqiq in this, but Abdul Haq al-Muhaddith al-Dehlwi, Imam al-A'imma of al-Hind, that was the first translation that was into Farsi, his translation. They say, right? Wallahu alam. I don't have tahqiq. This is hakada sami'tu. I heard it like this, but I don't have tahqiq on it. But there was huge debates. Can you translate the Quran? But as and when time required, there were changes. There were changes. So in this way, you can have takhayyurat, but as a principle, the religion never changes. And this is why the Prophet ﷺ loved the name Abd. What is going to save Islam today is the ubudiyah, not how clever your arguments are, how cleverly you can explain something, how you can explain something in a sort of leftist way and convince the left, or say something in a right sort of way and get convinced them. No, it's about, as Imam al-Tahawi, the creed of Islam is culminated in the creed of Imam al-Tahawi, yes? What's the last line in Aqeedah Tahawiyah? ये मुसलमानों के उनका जो अकीदा है, उसका जो आखिरी जो है ना, सतर line, the last line, what does he say? هذا ديننا ظاهرا وباطنا. This is our religion, outward and inward. You like it, you like it. You don't like it, you don't like it. This is our deen. This is our deen. We're not people of taqiyya, Shia, like the Shia, that we don't hide. No, we don't hide and we don't cover. هذا ديننا ظاهر وباطنا. And our deen is not. Our deen is moral and upright if only they knew. But what they have been told about the religion is something ugly and negative. So I mentioned this because of Al-Qab, that the Prophet ﷺ loved the title. I'll read the next, but I summarized the hadith yesterday where the Sahabi, he says, he gets the wudu water for the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet ﷺ says, Salni, ask me what you want. And he said, As'aluka murafaqataka fil Jannah. I ask you for your companionship in Jannah. Yeah? So what a thing to ask. The Sahaba, I'm telling you. فَقَالَ عَلَيْهِ الصَّلَاةُ وَالسَّلَامُ أَوْ غَيْرُ ذَلِكَ. Do you want something else as well? Or kuch. And then he said, قُلْتُ هُوَ ذَاكَ. Was that kafiya? What else am I going to ask for if I have you in the hereafter? Ya Rasulullah. Like when the companion, he said, Ya Rasulullah, in this dunya I'm with you. I'm with you right now. But in the akhirah, tusu kuta hoso, tu kuja, man kuja. Where are you going to be? Where am I going to be? Aslan, we're going to be somewhere over here. Don't you feel like that sometimes? Don't you feel like that? Like, you feel like if I get to Jannah, I have a good opinion of Allah. And I know, and I hope that Allah Ta'ala will take us to Jannah. I don't worship the Lord of wrath, although He has wrath. But my introduction to my Lord was through Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. So although He has wrath, absolutely, and I have iman in that, but my road to Him is through His mercy. I said that to you once before. I said to one of the in the silsila Chishtiya, they one from the wadha'if is Ya Kareem. They call upon Allah through Ya Kareem. And I said to one of the mashayikh, I said, Uzur, why is it Ya Kareem? And he said, oh, hamare buzurgu ne Allah ko karam se paya. And we found Allah through His karam, His generosity. That's how we call upon Him. And we know Allah through His karam. We seek Him through His karam. Right? And so we say, Ya Kareem. Of course, all of His names are beautiful. But Yani, this is the one that we call upon Him with His karam, His lutuf. Ya Kareem, Ya Latif. Yeah? So I have a good opinion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that regard, that we love Allah ta'ala and we believe Allah ta'ala loves us. And we hope that Allah ta'ala gives us tawfiq to do good. But if Allah of His karam enters me into Jannah, where am I going to be and where's Rasulullah going to be? Alayhi salatu wasalam. When I lived in Yemen, I was at Dar al-Mustafa, the madrasa with Habib Umar bin Hafiz. Now Habib Umar bin Hafiz, obviously Sayyid, Alim, from the family of the Prophet as well, alayhi salatu wasalam, Sunni Sayyid. But he is very busy, like very, very busy. And I remember I said to one of the brothers, like, I need to just catch him for a minute, just to ask him for a jalsa, for a sitting. Yeah? When he gives you a sitting, then he gave mashallah, and he was flying. That was a lot of karam of him as well. Because they're so busy. If I told you his timetable, subhanallah al-azim, you'd be shocked. Shall I tell you his timetable? Let me tell you. I'll tell you his Ramadan timetable, yeah? This is his Ramzan Sharif timetable. Yeah? This is Ruhani Taqat. Which bit of the day do I start with? Let's start with Fajr. Should we start with Fajr? Let's start with Fajr. Fajr, he leads the 5 prayers by himself, by the way, the entire year. Even though he's got hundreds of students there, right? 50 nationalities are there. Mostly Malaysians and Indonesians. They've taken over. Yeah, so, but 50 nationalities. Lead Fajr and Jamaat. Then they make awrad. And he gives a dars. When I was there, he taught Qawaid al-Aqaid, Imam al-Ghazali. And then they have Musafaha. In the Shafi'i school, there's Shafi'is, right? They have a thing where everybody shakes everybody's hand, yeah, to create ukhuwa. And the hall is huge. The masalla, you're going to love this. The masalla is called Ahlul the Kisa. What we call the cloak. Ahlul Kisa, the cloak, because the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ put Ali, his son-in-law, Fatima, his daughter, Hassan and Hussein, and he put the cloak over them and he said, Ya Allah, oh, I love them, ha'ula ahlu bayti. Yeah? These are my family. So love them for I love them. Yeah? So we call it, in our language, we call it Panjatan Pak. In our Panjatan Pak, it's Farsi, we use in Urdu, yeah? It's called Ahlul Kasa. Why? Because they say that when Habib Umar bin Hafiz built Dar al-Mustafa, that he built it under the instruction of the Prophet ﷺ. And this is a ruhani, this is a spiritual experience. Right? Some people deny these things. You can't deny them. They're mumkin aqlan, that's the first thing. They're rationally conceivable. Agar maine takiya isla matlab tani ka ghalat hai. Just because I have an experience, something doesn't mean it's wrong. Karamat of the awliya haq. Al-Hafiz ibn Taymiyyah, if you read his Al-Wasiyah, Al-Aqidah Al-Wusta, his books, what does he say? Karamatul awliya haq. And so there's no strand of Islam that denies the karamat except for the materialists like Sir Sayyid Ahmad Khan and these sort of people. They denied them, but that's a whole different story. Ala kullin, and that when he went to when he built it, and next to it, not far, 3 roads away, is Darul Zahra for the women. And that's where he saw Sayyidah Fatima. This is why we were saying it. You can never trump Ahlul Bayt. Why? Because Fatima is their grandmother and the Prophet is their grandfather. You could do what you want to so pay at Panama. You will never get that sharaf. Just accept it. Just accept it. And accept ghulami. Abd, isn't it? This is my whole topic ended up being about Abd today because of the title and in the hadith about ubudiyya is what will save your religion. I keep saying that. Fatima to Zahra, and that he sees Sayyidah Fatima, Salamullah alayha, and that's where he builds Darul Zahra. Now, there's mentioned that when he wanted to enter Dar Mustafa, that he saw the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, Allah Ta'ala gave him vision of the Prophet. And so he said, Ya Rasulullah, do I have ijazah to enter? And the Prophet said, you have ijazah to enter. And then Habib Umar said to him, that do my students have ijazah to enter? And the Prophet said, your students have ijazah to enter. And so on the top of the door, and the Prophet made a dua, that anyone that enters through the gate of Dar Mustafa. So on there, they've written it on the door. Yeah. Anyone that enters through the door with a good intention will be enough for that person. Yeah, meaning it's a good sign for you, as long as your niyat was salihah. And they say about the musalla of Ahl al-Kasa, that at every moment, one of the 5 is present in the musalla of Dar Mustafa. And on the Thursday night Mawlid, which is a majma, it's an experience to behold. Arafa man arafa. Yeah. Zaka man arafa, as they say, yeah. Yeah, or arafa man zaka, sorry. That just check your pata. Yeah. That majlis on the Thursday night, I mentioned it to you before, the tajalliyat on that mahfil is unbelievable. And they say on the Thursday night that all 5 are present. This is a ruhani kayfiyat. Those that, some people they won't believe it, they won't understand, no problem. I fully trust it and believe it. And I myself, Allah Ta'ala blessed to experience something of it, being there, right? So, Al-Kasa is the musalla of Dar Mustafa. Why did I mention Dar Mustafa? Habib Umar, naam. So they said to me, go, so his timetable, Fajr. So they do in the musalla, yeah? They do it goes out of the musalla, it's a huge musalla. Then they all make, this is in Ramadan I'm talking about, then they make, by now it's duha time. And they read the full 12 rak'at, long rak'at of duha. By the time that you go home, maybe it's 9 o'clock in the morning, 8:30, 9 o'clock. Habib will be up from his khadim told me, is that he sleeps sa'a or aqal. These were his words. He sleeps an hour or less. An hour or less. Then he's up and he would have, on like the TV stations, Al-Ithar al-Nabawi and others, he would have his appointments. Then Dhuhr, he's in the masjid, he leads the namaz, and then they sit and everybody makes a dhikr after Dhuhr. Yeah? Dhikr after Dhuhr. Then they lead Asr, and from Asr, Habib has the Rawha, where they read 6 or 7 books to him in Tasawwuf. And then up until Iftari, they make dhikr again. Up until Iftar. Then you make Iftar, and then they have Maghrib, and Habib Umar leads the Maghrib. Then after Maghrib, for Awwabin, they pray Salatul Tasbih. And that's a long Tasbih. Those of you that have done Salatul Tasbih, it's not small. Salatul Tasbih, they do Bajmat. And then you have about 35-40 minutes to run home and get something to eat if you want. And I've watched Habib walk into the side room behind the mosque. That's where he's sitting. And then half an hour, 35 minutes, back in the masjid, and they're making awrad up until Isha. And we haven't got to Isha yet. Making awrad up until Isha. Then they lead Isha, and then they do a Taraweeh. And when I was there, Habib did around 2.5 khatams of Quran. Yeah. Long, and he doesn't, like, I told you, he repeats the ayahs. He repeats them, like, if there's like a verse about khawf, for example, maybe it's something like, أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ اشْتَرَوُا الضَّلَالَةَ بِالْهُدَىٰ. Those are the ones that sold guidance for misguidance. فَمَا رَبِحَتْ تِجَارَةُ وَمَا كَانُوا مُهْتَدِينَ. That they got no profit in their trade in this dunya, and nor are they guided. He'll repeat it. أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ اشْتَرَوُا الضَّلَالَةَ بِالْهُدَىٰ أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ اشْتَرَوُا. Like, and he repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. Sometimes with the ayat of mercy. It's a long Taraweeh. That's the point I'm trying to make. Right? After the Taraweeh, they have a Mawlid. Every single day, they have a Mawlid. Yeah? After the Mawlid, in Tareem, khas about Tareem, is when one masjid finishes Taraweeh, the Taraweeh starts in the next masjid. And when that finishes, then in the next masjid. And they have Taraweeh going on the entire night up until Sahri. Like you can never miss your Taraweeh. There's never an excuse to miss your Taraweeh, basically. Yeah? So what Habib would do is he would lead his own Taraweeh, 2.5 khatams. He would then have the Mawlid with the Adhkar and that beautiful ginger coffee, yeah, filled with sugar. I used to call it, it's sukar fihi kahwa. It's sugar within which there's coffee, right? And but it's shifa in it. Wallahi, I'm telling you, I witnessed amazing things there. Like I was sick, and I went to the dar, and one of the brothers, I remember my throat was, when you're sick, you know how your throat feels and your body feels weak and takavat and all of that sort of stuff. And he goes, drink the coffee. I drank the coffee, I was immediately fine. Then Habib would leave the Mawlid and he would read Taraweeh behind a different Imam. And his older brother, Rahmatullah alayh, he was the Mufti of the Shafi'i of Tareem. He would do the Taraweehs the entire night. One Taraweeh after another Taraweeh after another Taraweeh up until Sahri. Yeah. And when Habib would do the second Taraweeh, he'd come back into the masjid, they'd make awrad collectively, and then they would pray tahajjud with jama'ah. And that was like another Taraweeh. It was 12 rak'ahs with long qira'ah. Like, I'm not kidding. Like the Taraweeh here. That's the tahajjud there. And the Taraweeh there, you haven't experienced the Taraweeh like that. Yeah. Habib would spend maybe 20 minutes just in the dua of witr. Everybody, I've got it. I've got it in place, it's recorded. And I tell you, I've seen them carry people out of the majlis that have got into wajd, screaming, shouting. I told you, I myself had experiences where I couldn't even physically lift my head up. Tajalliyat in that gathering, you're telling me people like that don't live? They live. These people are alive. Allah's awliya are alive. They're there, you have to find them. Up until tahajjud. When tahajjud finishes, they make the post-tahajjud awrad, azan for fajr, leads fajr, same thing again, awrad, dars, musafaha, 1 hour sleep, the TV stations, dhuhr, the awrad, asr jamaat, the rawha, the durus. In Ramadan, they have because all the lessons are stopped. So those are the only lessons, they're all in tasawwuf. Then the awrad, iftari, maghrib, salatul tasbih, then awrad, Taraweeh, Mawlid, Taraweeh, Tahajjud. Whole day like that. I could never keep up. Every day, 1 or 2 things, 3 things, and I was trying hard. I was trying hard to keep up. No way could I keep up with it. Every day. And I remember I went, I was missing things out, like left, right, and center. And I remember I went to one of the senior students, and I said to him, how do you do? And he just started laughing. And he was like, look, we're trying with madi taqat, with the physical strength. Because these people have ruhani strength. Allah Ta'ala gives them bast al-zaman. What they will achieve in 1 hour of sleep, you might not achieve in 8 hours of sleep. But then you see Habib in the majalis, it'd be like this. Sometimes I remember once he went like this, nodded off, no longer than 5 seconds. And he was up. And I remember one of the brothers, he said to me, because he had khuddam, and he said to me, because that would be the only sleep that Habib will get today. 24 hours. That, what you saw. He'll be up, running. Have you seen people like that? So, and I remember thinking then, when I lived with Habib, Uzwala, it came to my mind, I thought, Ya Rasulullah, I can't get close to Habib. How am I going to be next to you in Jannah? Look at the people that you've got in your time. What was Ghazali like? What was Shaykh al-Akbar like? What was Data Sahib like? What were they like? You think, I'm going to be far, far, far away. Where are we going to be? Where, even if you make it to Jannah. Oh, we shukr karsa. Ya Allah, tusna karam that you let me in. Otherwise, if you look at my kartoot, then I wasn't mustahik of this. Yeah? But this is your karam. But then where's Rasulullah going to be? So they used to say, this is outside Ramadan, if you want to catch him to ask him for a jalsa because he's so busy, go to his house 3 hours before Fajr, because he leaves about 2.5 hours before Fajr, goes to the masjid, and then they start the awrad. So he's already prayed his private tahajjud at home. So you can imagine how early he's up, right? And I remember I went out, I've told this story maybe before, and I went about 3 hours before Fajr, and I thought, today no one's going to beat me up this morning. Yeah, today I'm the first. Yeah, and I remember I walked out and I couldn't. I remember the Prophet said, he used to read those ayats from Baqarah at Tahajjud. I used to wake up. As soon as he used to walk out, he used to look at the sky and he said, the verse in fi ikhtilaf al-layli wal nahar, the ayat, yeah, the signs of God. And I couldn't remember it, and I just had the microphone and A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, bismillahir rahmanir rahim, and he starts reading the ayat. Alhamdulillah, then the dua, alhamdulillah alladhi ahyana ba'da ma amatana wa ilayna nushur. I thought, yeah, somebody was up before me. Went down to Dar Mustafa, looked into the window of the madrasa, and maybe 70, 80 people all sat there. I thought, what kind of people are these people? Yeah. And then I remember I was sitting outside, just sat outside, and I thought, I've got to sit outside his house 2-3 hours before Fajr to try catch him alone, just to ask for a jalsa with him. And then you'll get that jalsa maybe that day or the next day, etc. And you'll sit with him for a little while and you can ask your questions, you can do that. The classes, you're there. You're in the class with him. But you know, to get that private time. I said, Ya Rasulullah, where are you going to be in Jannah? I can't get past the people in my own age. How am I going to get past Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ali, Hassan, Hussein? How am I going to do it? And then, because he's Rahmatul Alameen, and he is Kareem Kareeman, alayhi salatu wasalam, and he is Wali Kaunain, alayhi salatu wasalam, and he is Ajwadun Nas Sadran, and he is Arhamun Nas and Akramun Nas, because he is all of that, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. When the Sahabi asked him that exact thing, and the Prophet said, Al-mar'u ma'a man ahab. A person is with the one, or will be with the one that he loves. He gave everybody a free ticket of murafaqa with him in Jannah, which was love, deep love for the Prophet ﷺ. People say, so why is it always about this nisbat and love and ishq? It's because you misread the formula. Yeah, the formula was a deep love for the Messenger of God, and he guaranteed you, if you have that, then don't look at all of these things. You'll be with me in Jannah. That's a promise from me to you, because he's Kareemun Nafs, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He's the most generous of souls, alayhi salatu wasalam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us that nisbah with the Prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to fall in love with the Prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam, as it is his right to be loved, alayhi salatu wasalam, as he's the asl of wujud, alayhi salatu wasalam. He is the maqsood al-takhliq, alayhi salatu wasalam. He is sahib al-lawlak, alayhi salatu wasalam. He is wali of Qawnain, alayhi salatu wasalam. He is shafi' al-umam, alayhi salatu wasalam. He is dafi' al-bala, alayhi salatu wasalam. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, out of your karam, that you honor us with that love for your Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam, and you make that journey easy for us. That you protect us from the trials and tribulations that come as a proving of oneself of that love. But Ya Allah, Anta qawi wa nahnu du'afa. We are weak, Ya Rabbil Alameen. We ask you for all of that karam, but with ease, Ya Rabbil Alameen. And we have a beautiful opinion of you, Ya Rabb as-samawati wal ard, Ya Akram al-Akrameen, that you will accept our prayers and you will honor us with murafaqa of Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam in the hereafter. Allahumma ameen, Ya Rabbil Alameen, bijahi al-Nabi al-Kareem Taha wa Yasin, wa salli Allahumma wa sallim wa barik على سيد الأولين والآخرين سيدنا وحبيبنا وحبنا وحبنا ومحبوبنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين آمين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.